And for example, according to BBB, Better Business Bureau, in 2022, 4 out of 10 people who encounter rental scams actually fall for one.
That's 40%. That's lucrative.
That's insane.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bamboo, Vancouver's property management and investment podcast. This week, we have Paula from Liv.rent. So she has immigrated here from Brazil a few years ago and is now working full-time as a realtor licensed, as well as working for Liv.rent. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Great. So just to kind of get into it, what did you used to do before real estate, or did you just come here and be like, I'm selling houses?
No, really great question. So I graduated in psychology back in 2012, but I've started my career in sales even back in my home country, Brazil. And I immigrated here in 2016. So it's been a while now.
Yeah.
And started with Liv.rent as a part-time project assistant. I was taking BCIT at that time for sales, professional sales management. And it started with sales with Liv.rent in 2017.
Okay.
And took my real estate license back in 2021. So it's been a wild and exciting ride. And I love working for Liv.rent. So very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get it right into it. So can you give us a quick overview about Liv.rent? How's it changing the market? I mean, why is it different than Craigslist? Most people use Craigslist and Kijiji. Oddly enough, I'm sure that you know from Liv.rent being across Canada that there seems to be a cutoff in the middle of the country where West uses Craigslist, East uses Kijiji, and
crazy.
I don't know how or why that happened, but it's just like, okay, that's weird. When I get new clients, I was like, oh, did you put it on Kijiji? I'm like, oh, you're from Toronto. Excellent. So I was like, now I know. But so if you can give us like a high overview, what makes Liv.rent different?
Yeah.
Why go to you?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, we don't use Kijiji nor Craigslist.
Yeah,
just kidding. But honestly, Liv.rent, we started developing the platform back in 2015 and we launched it in 2018. So it's been a while now.
Yeah.
Our headquarters is here in Vancouver, very close to your office, by the way.
Yeah.
And we really started as, an opportunity to create a trusted rental community. Mm-hmm. We saw on Craigslist, which is highly utilized here. Yeah. We saw on Craigslist the opportunity and the need to help renters and help landlords with a more trusted platform where they can find verified renters, verified landlords, and verified listings.
Yeah.
And also the ability to actually provide landlords and rental providers in general, property managers, agents, multifamily businesses, with the ability to use technology. So we have a very tech-forwarded platform. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that renters and landlords are evolving the same way the real estate industry is evolving. And technology is in the forefront of our business.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely say being a trusted, we are now considered the most trusted rental platform in Canada. We are very excited about that. So providing renters with the verified listings from verified landlords as a key component of our business, as well as providing rental providers with, a tech-forwarded platform so they can streamline their rental process instead of using paper, Excel, and having things all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you had mentioned that you're the most trusted site. Was that on how did you find this out?
Well, it's basically because of our ability to create a very strict and multi-layer verification process within the platform. So we do have multiple ways of doing that. So we started, for example, with verifying phone numbers, verifying emails, which most of the rental platforms out there are not doing. Mm-hmm. But we evolved that. And now we also create a verification process for IDs for both the landlord side, the rental provider side, as well as the renter side.
Okay.
So we verify their government-issued ID along with a selfie.
Yeah.
And we don't use AI for that. So we use real people to make sure that everything is being corroborated properly. So fake IDs will never pass on our verification process. And we also do verify listings.
Okay.
So we have two ways of verifying listings on Liv.rent. We can either send a postcard to landlords' houses and properties. So they basically kind of like Gmail and Google what they do.
Okay, like verify that you're actually there.
Exactly. And the other way is to provide land title documents, tax documents, anything that shows landlord's name on those properties. So we're basically trying to shield renters from all the scammers that we see on Craigslist and on Kijiji.
Which is good. I mean, that's actually one of the sales points for doing the property management side of it, is that we find that a lot of tenants are more comfortable knowing that we're in a brick and mortar place. So 100%. Chances are the place that you're renting out has a property manager attached to it, and you can go to the place, as opposed to sending a $2,000 deposit to some dude off the internet.
Exactly.
Which, like, even just verbalizing that seems nerve-wracking, and I can understand how a lot of tenants would be a little nervous.
And they fall for it. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to be getting into some of the data of the scams and stuff out there and that later on for sure. But I mean, like, the numbers are quite shocking at the fact that people are still able to rent, and we have a very little vacancy rate in Vancouver, and it's like, how are people still doing this game? Like, it's nuts.
It is nuts, especially because of the high immigration numbers that we have here. So you probably know, like, we have renters coming from all over the country. I came from Brazil 8 years ago. So from being from Brazil, I had no idea what the rental market would look like here. It is completely different. So when you go to a rental platform and there's no verification process, you're just seeing an ad, like a couple of pictures that you think that might be the apartment, and you think that, oh, this one is affordable enough, I'll just go get it.
Yeah.
You have no idea what the process will look like if you are coming from a different country. So
absolutely.
A lot of those immigrants, when they come to Canada, they are easy targets for those scammers, and a lot of them will fall.
Yeah, well, it's funny, even like the process is different from province to province, even.
For sure.
And we see that run into all the time. You know, we'll talk to landlords and like, oh, you guys have to do that. And like, yeah, we would, but it's totally illegal in BC. So no, I won't. Right? It's like, it's all wide range. So like, having a good platform that is local to that city, I'm sure, is a massive help to people, because just as I touched on, rules are different in Toronto. So obviously Liv.rent in Toronto probably has a couple of small tweaks to the processes,
100%.
I'm assuming, because it's in a different province with different laws. Yeah. So that absolutely makes sense. Now, we did touch a bit on that you do the verification and all that. What are some of the other, if there are any others, processes that Liv.rent does with that? What's the protections for both landlord and tenant, of course.
Yeah. Well, besides verification, and again, it's ID verification, selfie. We also do phone verification and all of that. We also have report a listing or report a user within the platform. And that's for both the landlord side, the rental provider side, and the renters. So, for example, if you think that's something wrong with the listing, you can just click a button and report that listing to our client success team. And we have real people taking a look at those problem reports. And the same with a user. So let's say you're chatting with a landlord. You think it's a real person behind the chat, but there's something iffy about that conversation. You could just click the button and report that user. So then we'll start an investigation process within the platform. And again, we do have technology behind it, but we also have real people taking a look at those reports. And we're really grateful for the renter community that we've built, because a lot of the renters, they are super fast in reporting a scammer. So obviously we have like verified check marks for verified ID landlords and verified listings. But some of them are not verified. And then if a tenant goes ahead and start chatting with that landlord and there is something wrong, they will instantly report to us. And then we suspend the listing first. We suspend the landlord. They cannot chat with anyone. They cannot do anything. And then we start an investigation process. Some of the times, landlords go ahead and verify their listing and verify their IDs, which is great. So it is also a way to push landlords to also provide verification. Because it's how how do you say it? It's like a both
two-way street.
Two-way street.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that renters are also reporting landlords, but sometimes landlords report renters as well, because there are scammers on the renter side, but also scammers on the landlord side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, with the reporting, I'm sure that most landlords, because as you said, goes and then it freezes their account and all that.
Mm-hmm.
How quick is the turnaround on the investigation? Because you run into certain things that, perhaps you had more than one tenant that was interested in a place.
Mm-hmm.
They feel they're not getting it or it's not going to be fit. And now they're pissed off and like, I want to get that guy. And so just report him. So like, how does that work? And also, is there repercussions for that? Like if someone's just reporting, I mean, we've had people wholesale just put in bad comments for our rental company and we have no idea who they are. And then we actually went and looked them up and they had put them on multiple. They were just mad at all rentals. And so
sometimes because they haven't been selected.
Yeah. And like Google took them down, of course. But like, that is a threat that I think that some landlords would be nervous about.
For sure.
How quick is the process to see if it was legit?
Yeah. Well, our client success team will work from Monday to Friday. So usually during weekdays, we are very quick. I would say in one business day, we probably start the investigation and we start going after the details and information.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it does require landlord's verification, it will take a little bit more time because we need the landlord to become ID verified. We need the landlord to provide land title documents, etc., to make sure that that listing gets verified. But we also had sometimes renters just getting mad about not being selected or something went wrong with the property management company and they just reported saying that they didn't show up for a showing but they actually didn't conform and things like that. So we are very conversational as well. So we work closely with the property management companies, especially the ones that are verified on Liv.rent. So if a renter is reporting a verified listing from a verified landlord or a verified property management company, we'll go after that company and try to understand what has happened. Sometimes the company will say, well, they were not selected, so they got pretty mad about it, and then we won't suspend the landlord because of it. It's just a matter of us trying to acknowledge the situation and let tenants know, we're going to take care of it, and we're going to chat with the property management company about it. But there won't necessarily be repercussions just because a tenant is reporting a listing. We'll basically investigate. If we need to go forward with a suspension, we'll suspend a user. If not, we'll just communicate with the tenant and the landlord.
And now I guess I don't know if you have the numbers for it, but how often does this happen? Like, is it a couple a day?
I would
hundreds?
Say no. I would probably say, if we have one scammer trying to create an unverified listing, we also have very other alternative verification processes before they go ahead and do that. So it's pretty hard for a scammer to even post a listing on Liv.rent because we have so many layers of verification and stuff. But if they do go ahead with it, we usually have, let's say, 3 or 4 reports for the same listing and the same landlord within a day.
Draws it real quick. Huh?
Exactly. So it's really quick because renters are also that's why we're very grateful because they are amazing in terms of this doesn't look right, like a $1,000 listing in downtown Vancouver. That's probably not right.
Yeah, the
and then they report it, and then we get it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So that's actually a good sort of line into just touching on how does Liv.rent streamline the rental process, particularly in applications and rent payments. I know that you guys have a portal. How does that all look for anyone who hasn't been on Liv.rent yet?
Yeah. So the thing that I love the most about Liv.rent is, beside obviously being tech forwarded platform and business company, we also make sure that landlords and renters have everything they need in just one dashboard, in just one place. So before, I cannot even remember how I was renting before Liv.rent, honestly. But if you can think about it, some landlords, they still use paper applications. They use paper contracts. They book showings by calling the renter and just figuring out the best time slot for a showing and all that. And
terrible move-in reports.
Exactly. I cannot even think about doing something like that, especially if you have over 5 listings, which honestly, most landlords, even independent landlords, most of them, at least in the big city centers, they do have 5 plus listings to rent. So it becomes pretty overwhelming. And that was actually the reason why we created Liv.rent, because we wanted to make sure that even independent landlords can use the platform to do everything in a very streamlined way in one place. So we have basically one dashboard where landlords and rental providers can provide the same seamless experience from lead to lease in just one place.
Okay.
So landlords can go to Liv.rent, market their listings, post their listings there, again, get verify their IDs, etc. And then they can screen tenants as well using our AI algorithm that is also powered by Equifax. And we'll talk a little bit more about that probably.
Absolutely. We have a lot of people asking us about credit checks, so we're definitely going to get into that.
And then from the application, they can easily sign a lease agreement. Obviously not everywhere in Canada, but now in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. So they can sign the lease agreement digitally, so no more paper leases and no more communication all over the place. So we have a one centralized inbox where all the communication will go to. And it's also becoming very, very easy for landlords to go through arbitration processes in the future if they ever have to, because everything is just in one place. So you don't have to come through, emails, text messages, and other papers and documents to see where the information is. So everything is there. And then from the lease agreement that is digital, you can also send payment requests, and renters can pay via credit card, so they can get some points through their credit cards.
That's a nice touch,
and also via UnionPay and Bitcoin. We're actually the first rental platform to allow landlords to receive rental payments
Bitcoin.
Via Bitcoin.
We are moving now. And I just want, I'm sure the answer is yes, but for people who do have their place verified, does Liv.rent, you can toggle that back and forth, so that way once the tenant moves on, they don't have to re-verify that their home is still theirs, or how does that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So if they relist the property will be relisted as a verified unit. And we also have a very seamless verification process for property management companies that are licensed. So usually for multifamily clients, as well as property managers, agents, we do verify via their business license and via their real estate license. So if you are a property management company with like 100 listings, 1,000 listings, you don't have to verify every single one. You become a verified user. And let's say in BC, we have your BC FSA license, then we get your verification badge via those meetings.
Which is good, because like most of us are 78, 75 properties per. There'd be a lot of verification going on.
For sure. We don't want that. We want to streamline the process.
Now, you did touch in, and we have touched in at the start of the show, on fraud and scams and all that. So how does Liv.rent, you don't have to give away the whole cow, but how do they help protect both landlords and tenants from scams, as well as a lot of landlords don't realize that there are like tenant scams too. So maybe we'll start off with how it is, and then maybe touch on in just what are some of the scams that are out there being run. Like, we run across some of them, but there's always a new one. There's always a new one. And the great thing about Liv.rent is that we're constantly doing research to also learn more about those rental scams. Right now, 2024, after all the immigration regulations, real estate changes, and all of that, for example, we are seeing more and more scammers related to immigration. People offering, you can get a visa and come to Canada. And sometimes they do that through the rental platforms. They start talking to you about a listing, and then out of a sudden they're asking your details to basically steal your information. So I've actually brought some data here about rental scams. And for example, according to BBB, Better Business Bureau, in 2022, 4 out of 10 people who encounter rental scams actually fall for one. That's 40%. That's lucrative.
That's insane. Yes. And the average monetary loss is about $1,500. So we're talking about $2,000, and that's pretty much it. $1,500, if you think about it, if we're talking about a rental apartment that is $3,000, that's basically the deposit amount, and that's what they do. So they basically try to catch you with like sometimes affordable listings. Nowadays, they are becoming more and more wise with how affordable they are. Because they know that if they are too affordable, like a 1,000 listing, 1,000 one-bedroom apartment, for example, it's going to be too good to be true. So they get very close to the average, but a little bit below it. So that means that, they're going to try and scam you because of maybe sometimes like a $300 difference, $500 difference,
Yeah.
and you will believe in that. And they have really great conversations. I've seen some reports of people who actually had the keys to an apartment that was not theirs, and then they did like a group showing and started collecting a bunch of applications.
Yeah, that was common, especially with using Airbnb. They'd go rent an Airbnb for a week, do a week's worth of showings.
Exactly.
Try to collect a application fee, which obviously is illegal in BC.
Yeah.
But if you're not from here, you don't know that.
Yeah.
And so they just have it, and they'd already be inside. That makes it a lot more believable, right? So
for sure,
definitely big Sam's on that. So how does Liv.rent help protect from that? Like they verify the landlords, obviously. Yeah. That's the main one. I take it. Is there any other coverage?
The main one is definitely to verify the landlord, but not only the landlord ID, but also the listing. Okay. So I remember there was a case where we went to MLS to try and see the land title documents from a landlord who was not willing to verify their listing. And rent amount was actually below average, and we really thought it was a scammer. At the end of the day, it wasn't. But it was good because we are really trying to protect our renters to make sure nobody's falling for those. And again, renters are actually helping us a lot with that too. Yeah, because if they see suspicious activities, sometimes it's not even suspicious. Sometimes the landlord is just being a landlord. Sometimes there is a language barrier as well. So the landlord's not able to communicate correctly, and the renter becomes a little bit suspicious. So all of that, those details, they basically come to us and we start those investigations. Yeah. But as you're mentioning, like we also do the same on the renter side. We know that especially now with high interest rates, it's becoming more and more common for landlords to try and be stricter with the verification process on the renter side. So that's why we developed our Trust Score, which is our tenant screening process that's powered by Equifax. And on the renter side, we not only verify their IDs and their selfies, but we also verify their employment documents, their income documents, and they do credit checks within the platform as well.
Yeah, which is interesting, the credit checks. So like, it's nice that because now you can accept credit cards, so it actually will help their credit in theory. But that's one of those things that I think that a lot of owners have been misconstrued about, thinking that a credit check is the end-all be-all, but rent and credit are two separate beasts. You can have great credit and still not pay your rent.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There are companies nowadays trying to report credit via their rental experience, which is great. I know some great companies out there are trying to do that. Yeah. But again, a good credit check will not necessarily give you the full picture.
Absolutely.
Which is why the Trust Score is such a comprehensive tenant screening report, because we analyze background check, we analyze their LinkedIn social media profiles, we analyze their documents, and we give you a better picture instead of just, this is their credit, you just go for it, and you're just blindsided with the details that are there. And we also support international renters that way, because we know that, for example, if you're coming from a different country, you don't have credit history in here. A lot of landlords think, well, if you don't have credit history, I can't trust you.
That's a tough one for sure.
And that's not necessarily the case. You do, right? Yeah.
Like, no credit history. What do you want to do? Like, they just got here.
Exactly. And honestly, I do like international renters because they also have a lot to lose, because their immigration experience is in line, right? Yeah. So a lot of them, they come with a lot of money in savings. You're able to get references from their countries, their home countries. And on Liv.rent, we also make sure that they are able to bypass the credit section. Yeah. And they can provide you alternative documents.
Okay.
So for example, well, I don't have credit history here, so I will provide my employment documents. I will provide references and things from my home country in order to prove somehow that I am going to be a good tenant. So
yeah, absolutely. It's actually funny you're talking about with the internationals. We have a lot of units around UBC, a lot of SFU. And one of the things we always have to discuss with the owners that we work with is they get concerned about the fact that it's an international student, mom and dad are paying from wherever home is. Yeah. And they're saying, what do we do about this? How do we know they're going to be able to? And it's funny just to have that conversation and be like, you guys need to slow down and think for a second. Who in their right mind would send their child out of the country to university to be homeless?
Yeah.
I don't think this is the plan. So chances are, if they're applying somewhere, mom and dad already got this covered. So like,
for sure.
I mean, obviously there's outliers for everything, but generally speaking, I'd suggest renting to international students is a fairly reasonable plan.
Yeah.
Simply for the fact that most people are not going to set their kids up for fail.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
For sure.
So, yeah. The only threat that I do find with the international students sometimes is it might be their first time out of the home. And that's where
that's tricky.
You got to kind of like watch it. They just don't know certain things, and that's fine.
They don't have experience with it. Yeah.
Also, what we find, and we send out a thing, this is probably a tip for anyone who has newer international students, is to send out a note about leaving a window cracked during the winter, because you get all the condensation, and we find it's generally from students and people that are from hotter countries, because it's -10 outside. So everyone shuts all their windows and turns on all the heat, and this makes condensation and wet everywhere. And then I've told numerous of them, like, hey, just leave your window cracked. And they're like, I want to freeze my ass off. Kind of thing. It's like, you'll be fine, I promise. And you won't have condensation. And oh, okay. Yeah. But like, I know that on paper, it sounds moronic to leave a window open.
Yeah.
It's cold outside.
It's definitely a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like maybe giving them like a set of rules and even instructions. Sometimes like I get, renters who are renting for the first time, either because they are out of the country or they're moving away from their parents' house and they're renting from the first time and they have no idea what to do next. So they get desperate, they get anxious, and you need to be more patient with it. That's where psychology comes into play. Yeah,
absolutely.
You have to be patient, and you have to make sure that you have a set of rules written down, because again, it's their first experience renting, right? So you want to be careful.
Absolutely. Now, we touched on earlier in the show that the competition in Vancouver is tight. Like there are not many places available. Does Liv.rent provide any ways to make a tenant stand out during the process? How does one make themselves look better on Liv.rent, I guess, as a tenant?
And that's a great question. And it's even like maybe a recommendation for tenants out there. I've seen a lot of tenants just, go into Facebook Marketplace and clicking that button. Is this listing still available?
Oh, God, I hate that.
We all hate that. It's so annoying.
And then they disappear.
And then they disappear. Yes,
it's
available. Okay, bye.
Thanks.
There are so many memes about that out there on Instagram. We always recommend tenants to have a tenant passport or a summary of themselves. On Liv.rent, for example, we allow tenants to, complete their profiles, complete their application process, and apply to multiple listings with just the click of a button once they have their profiles completed. So we encourage them to actually create a little summary of themselves. So if you look into Liv.rent's application, on the renter side, you have a little about you. So you can tell renter provider your story. You have your picture. You can show your dog or your cat within your profile. You do your credit check. You upload all your documents. So your application is fully ready.
Yeah.
And then you submit those applications to all the listings that you're interested in. And that's how you stand out. So instead of sending, is this listing available, whatever, you're just going to submit your application, and it's going to be very seamless. So we wanted to encourage renters to, just stand out. And instead of, sending just basic messages, if you are talking about a listing that will get 50 inquiries or more, the way you're going to stand out is by providing landlords with as much information as you can. Yeah.
Now, that being said, it just sort of reminded me, the fact that people are sending in an image of their government ID and stuff like that, do you guys delete that afterwards, or what? Because data breaches are a big thing that happens, what seems to be daily.
For sure.
What happens afterwards?
Yeah, we are very, very, very big with security. Our developers everything like within Liv.rent, even internally, we have strict guidelines for everything. And privacy is something really big for us. So for example, when they do verify their IDs, either on the landlord side or the renter side, those documents get destroyed by the system completely. So if I am verifying my ID, we'll have a compliance team that is trained to verify those IDs. They are the only ones with access to those documents. And once they click on the approve, it's been approved, the documents are gone. So we really take pride in that. And obviously for credit checks, you're only going to submit your credit information to landlords that you were applying to. And on the landlord side, if they're not verified, they will never be able to unlock your application. So that's a big thing as well. Yeah. So if, a renter scammer is chatting with tenants, let's say they do have a listing that seems good enough in terms of pricing, etc., and they are not falling under our suspicion yet, they will be not able to unlock your documents or anything like that, because they have to be ID verified and their listing needs to be verified.
Yeah. So it's definitely good pass-throughs to make sure that you're dealing with the actual person, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So now, as we've been talking about, obviously Liv.rent is very tech-driven. AI is, everybody's talking about AI, and apparently we're never going to have to work again type of thing. What other advanced technologies does Liv.rent do, or even maybe you can touch in on what are some of the things that AI is doing?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's vast, so you don't have to hit them all. But if there's any 2 or 3 main points that Liv.rent is using it for, what would some of them be?
Yeah. So it's funny to think about it, because when we started developing the platform back in 2015 and when we launched it in 2018, we didn't even hear about AI back then, but we already utilized AI back in 2018 when we developed the tenant screening process. So the tenant screening process within Liv.rent is powered by AI algorithms along with the Equifax credit reports.
Okay.
And back in 2022, if I'm not wrong, we also introduced our smart description. So we know how tough it can be to describe your rental property in a very seamless way. Sometimes people just say 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and there is a really nice balcony or bright and spacious. We all done that.
Cozy.
So we created basically a connection with ChatGPT AI. Okay. So you enter all your details, you're creating a listing, and then with the click of a button, AI creates a very nice description to describe your property based on all the details that you've typed in. So you added the square footage, the address, the details, like how many bedrooms, bathrooms, and AI describes your property in a very nice way. And it also includes details about the neighborhood, which is really great for tenants.
Sure. Walkability and whatnot, grocery stores and stuff like this.
Exactly, which is so important. Right? Yeah. And obviously, internally, we're constantly looking into ways to, streamline and make our business more effective. Yeah. With our multi-layer verification process, we include AI, and we're looking into more ways of including AI as well. Okay. So we're really tech-driven, and AI is in the forefront of our business.
Yeah. Oh, and a side note, because I find you'll see them ads up. A lot of people have been using ChatGPT, just standalone type of thing. For the love of God, please read what AI writes. Yeah. Because sometimes I'm like, what?
It doesn't make sense.
What are you talking about? It's like, don't do that. So don't blindly trust AI, I think is
for sure.
the gist of what I'm saying. Make sure you reread what was written. And that you did.
At the end of the day, you're talking to humans, right? So you want to make sure maybe AI can help you in a way, but honestly, I think it's never going to replace humans.
Yeah, especially, I see certain ones from a lot of realtors are using it in their write-ups for the sales, and I'm like, there's no human who speaks like this at
Sometimes
all.
We get emails from clients that you're like, oh, this is definitely AI written, so I'm just going to use AI to reply.
Right? Especially with the descriptive words. Yeah. Like, oh, this is a fantabulous blah, blah, blah. No one says a toilet is fantabulous. I'm sorry. It's not a thing. So you did talk about that there's a aid for getting write-ups there for the landlords and that. It's a great segue, though, for what are some of the ways for a landlord on Liv.rent or in general to really stand out and really make that, because obviously if there's more listings, you want to make sure that everyone goes to yours first.
Yeah.
What are some good tips to stand out on Liv.rent in particular or in general?
And that's such a great question, Haze. Honestly, especially in 2024, you're probably seeing that the rental market is certainly different from what we saw back in 2023 and 2022 after COVID. You really want to make sure that you are standing out. And the best way is honestly, and it seems very simple, but for some reason it's not, but really good photos.
Yeah.
You don't have to take professional photos of, a $2,000 apartment. Sometimes, budget wise, it won't really make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can still use your phone, but instead of taking vertical images, make sure you take horizontal images.
So easy, right?
Instead of putting your bathroom as the cover image, just opt for, maybe a kitchen, living room, or if like the apartment inside looks awful, which happens sometimes, or it's messy because the current tenant is still there and you cannot take good photos. It's also fine. Maybe you can use, photos of the neighborhood or the building itself, amenities. So being creative with photos will be really key. And nowadays on Liv.rent, for example, we allow landlords to add videos and 3D tours.
Okay, good. I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah. Not a lot of people do that. I don't know why, but it saves landlords so much time to just add a video, even if it's just like a video from your phone.
Yeah.
Add a little walk through video, and then it will save you a lot of time because tenants will take a look at the video first. If there's something they don't like, they won't book a showing to go in person. Right? So you're saving so many hours every single week. Instead of doing showings, ask them to, take a look at the video.
Yeah.
If there is more high-end property, then you spend a little bit more, and then you do a 3D tour, which is really effective as well because they can get a full picture of what the place will look like.
Absolutely.
And then you can add the 3D tour link onto your Liv.rent listing, and it makes it easier for renters to see the place.
Yeah.
And along with that, obviously on Liv.rent becoming verified.
Yeah.
Renters on their search filters, they select an option, verified listings only.
Okay.
So a lot of renters, I would say 65% or more of our renters, they are selecting that search filter. So if you're not verified on Liv.rent, your listing will not be seen at all.
So don't dip your toe and dive in, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, you guys obviously have a fair amount of data. I noticed that you guys obviously release the monthly reports and all that for the various cities. They are quite helpful. One of the things that we were wondering, though, is where does all the data come from? Because obviously, you know how much things have rented for on Liv.rent.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as all the tons of other places to put it, we don't have access for what that's sold. Like the MLS on the sales side, we can see what it's sold for.
Yeah.
They've also started holding rentals now, which is kind of interesting. Hopefully, we'll get an extra data set. But what are the other sources that you guys are using to sort of show what it's actually renting for? Or is it just sort of like a within range?
Within range, I would say. It's really hard. Even on Liv.rent, we're able to see if landlords are signing the leases on Liv.rent, we are able to see the exact same price that they're renting it for. Right now, I wouldn't say it's changing too substantially. So we're still relying on the data that is being marketed.
Yeah.
But differently from CMHC, for example, instead of just getting buildings purpose-built rentals that are rent controlled and pushes the averages down quite substantially, we're actually taking a look into multiple rental platforms. So we do take a look into consideration all the listings on Liv.rent, but we also take a look at other, I would say the top 3 or 4 most popular rental platforms per city. Yeah. So we do with Vancouver, we do with Alberta, as well as Quebec and Toronto.
Okay.
So we take a look at the top rental platforms to get a very comprehensive set of data.
Yeah.
And that's how we come up with the average.
Okay.
And honestly, it's been extremely helpful for renters and for landlords. For renters, in a way, it helps them understand the averages, and is this an affordable rental? For a listing, it might be a scammer if it's too, the rental price is too nice, low. Yeah. Exactly. And if it's too high, they're also able to maybe negotiate pricing. And on the landlord side, obviously, it will make sure that they are, taking a look at their ROI and make sure they're getting the most out of their rental rate. So, it's really helpful.
Now, one of the things, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, because I do notice that with the monthly stats, Liv.rent keeps track of what the average tenant is paying to rent and retaining for themselves. Now, of course, this tends to wildly swing sometimes from month to month. do you have any ideas why, or is it just sort of that's just what the data says that month? Like we've always tried to figure like why is it up to 80 and it was 20 last month?
Yeah, it changes a little bit because for this particular section of our reports, we can only rely on Liv.rent data, right? Okay. So it's only for the leases that are being rented through Liv.rent. So we basically do a calculation between the rental prices and how much those people are earning.
Yeah.
So sometimes if, in a month we have most of our renters earning average salary a year and the rental prices are probably too high, then the comparison will be a little bit tougher.
Okay.
So that's probably the
we're just curious because I know that we get them like that's really strange compared to last year. Like,
but on average, and even like considering like one-time applications that we see on Liv.rent and all the employment documents, income documents, on average, we know that tenants are spending around 40 to 45%, especially here in BC. We don't know about other areas,
absolutely.
But
which is funny because like they say that you should spend only 30%, but like if you're doing that, you're
not renting to anyone.
Like, sorry, thanks for coming up.
Yeah.
And if you have that type of money, you're probably buying something.
For sure. Yeah.
And now just with that data and all that, each year Liv.rent comes out with their predictions for next year, and so on and so forth. Have you noticed any trends with landlords or tenants? Like what are some trends that you've noticed, or do you figure maybe like a sneak peek onto the predictions for next year, perhaps?
Let me take a look at my crystal ball right here. Honestly, even me, like I've been, involved in the rental industry for 6-7 years now. And I was surprised with 2024 rental prices and rental demand, like everything that we're not going to go into politics and government and nothing like that.
That would be a different show.
For sure. All the real estate regulations that have been changed this year, immigration regulations, like so many changes within such a short time frame. Everything has impacted the rental market quite substantially. So back in 2023, for example, co-living was a big hit in both the US and Canada. Renters were not able to afford the rental prices because they were, at all-time highs, astronomical. And they started to share places, not just students, but, working professionals, like two, software developers, both earning $100,000 a year, sharing a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yep. I've got a couple of them, actually.
Exactly. And now in 2024, we are seeing rental averages declining quite a lot. And honestly, it's just a matter of being more creative with marketing, exposure, being more careful with your ads. You cannot just add one picture to your listing and, think that it will have like 10 or 100 inquiries in a month because it won't. We are seeing clients struggling a little bit more with their rentals. Some listings have been sitting there for 3-4 months. And those are listings who are putting marketing money behind it with like sponsored ads, boosted listings, etc. So I think in 2025, obviously interest rates are going down, which is great. Maybe rental prices will decline a bit more, but we need to wait and see what are going to be the immigration rules for 2025 and all that, because
just rolled out some.
We really rely a lot on immigration, and if those people are not coming to the country, that means that inventory is high, demand is low, rental prices are down a bit more. We know that a lot of landlords will start renewing their mortgages back in next year.
It's already started, and it's already started. Coming, right?
Yeah. So what's going to happen? Maybe more listings coming to the market, more landlords selling it. It's a really tricky market to kind of like predict. But I think probably rental prices will go down even further, and be more creative with the marketing experience, and honestly really taking care of the few renters that you have in hand will be really key.
It's funny you're saying with some of the ones that are sitting on the market, you have to deal with expectations in a lot of cases, and a lot of landlords, it's been sitting for 4 months, we're doing all this advertising, why isn't it renting? It's the part you don't want to lower. it's the price.
Exactly. Yes,
Right?
yes.
So it's like
And
the market is talking. There's a quote that my mom, who was a realtor for many years, said. She said that the market may be cruel, but it doesn't lie. So when it's
100%.
talking, you got to listen to it. So
yeah.
simply put, if you've got a good product and it's been sitting there for months,
Lower the price. And there was a lot of resistance. Sometimes they prefer to stay vacant for 6 months or a year instead of lowering $200-$300. So it is worth taking into consideration.
Especially
where the
the
average
math.
is right.
Well, especially the math. You're chasing $100 and it's vacant for a month.
There you go. That's your money.
2,000 by 100. That's 20 months. You're chasing this now. Like, come on, dude.
It makes no sense.
Get your ego out of the way. Just do the thing.
Yeah. And renters are very wise in terms of negotiating prices as well. So we are seeing more and more renters going after the cheapest rentals, or, they come to you and then they give you a summary of themselves. Like, they really show themselves as great tenants. And then they go and ask, like, how much discount can you give me? Like, because I'm seeing the same listing for like maybe $300 less. Can you do the same price for me?
Yep.
So we are seeing more and more of that.
Which is totally fine. I noticed that a lot of the tenants that we have come in, they don't even ask.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? The worst that you're going to hear is no.
Is a no. Yeah.
Right? You might as well ask for $100 off. Don't go crazy and try to get half off like some people try to do on trying to buy a car on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
But like within reason, I think a lot of landlords are open to, oh, you're a good tenant, you're willing to negotiate, communicate, everything looks good. $100, you move in next month? Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a different thing. We're going to see how this interest rate works, because there's a lot of people figure they're going to have another drop before the end of the year. Generally, the winter is a little bit slower on the sales side, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then spring is all hell going to break loose, because I find a lot of the time, once all the prices start pushing up, then people get pushed out of the market.
Yeah.
And then they go into the rentals. So then the rentals start going up too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting spring.
That's what it's an interesting one.
It's going to be tricky. We don't know yet.
Hard to predict. Really hard to predict. Because usually you can have a sense of like, oh, this might happen, or that is pushing the market into that direction. But right now, especially since it has changed so much, so drastically within the last 6 months.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. If someone's trying to get more information from you about Liv.rent, obviously go to the site, and if they're trying to find you directly, how do they find Paula?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. To find me, the best way is probably via email, paula@liv.rent. And for Liv.rent, obviously, Liv.rent. We are in all social media platforms you can possibly imagine. Our blog is also a really amazing piece of content for both renters and landlords. And we are expanding to so many more provinces within the country, and hopefully to the U.S. Within the next couple of years.
Nice.
So yeah, just hit us at Liv.rent.
Okay, perfect. Well, if you've been listening for this long, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Haze. This has been Bamboo, Vancouver's property management and investment podcast.